Well, after suffering some setbacks in the last election, the Republican Party is having a very public debate about which way to go. And our next guest says the GOP is in the middle of a true identity crisis because it simply does not know what it wants to be. Craig Shirley is the author of 2 books on Ronald Reagan and his presidential campaigns, including Rendezvous with Destiny. He's also the president of Shirley and Bannister, a public affairs and communication company. So, Craig, a true identity crisis, you say that's been coming on for a couple years. It doesn't have to do with this most recent election. Why? Why do you think the GOP is in the middle of an identity crisis?
Well, thank you, Jenna. It came to a head, obviously, with the election of 2 weeks ago, but it's a problem that's been brewing for some time. And that's why you saw the outcropping of the Tea Party movement, because they felt the Republican Party had grown into a second big political party in America, much like the Democratic Party, and I think a lot of people see it that way today. Is Reagan found himself in a very similar situation after 1976, after Gerald Ford had lost to Jimmy Carter, and he went out and gave speeches calling for what he literally said, a new Republican Party. It can no longer be the party of the corporate boardroom. It can't be the party of the country club. It has to be the party of the individual. It has to be the party of the shopkeeper, the cop on the street, the homemaker, but it cannot, centralizing authority in Washington was antithetical to a conservative Republican philosophy.
So, Craig, during even the Republican primaries, we saw this debate about, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most conservative of them all?
Sure.
And that's something we also saw come up now. We've seen this conversation continue now in the last 2 weeks. Did Reagan have a similar tension that he had to navigate about what a true conservative really is?
That's a good question. Early in his career, yes, but he went through an intellectual evolution over time. So that by the late 70s, he's a fully formed, optimistic conservative who believes in federalism, who rallies and runs against the Washington buddy system. He openly went after big business, big government, big labor, the big lobbyist, and called for sending power back and authority back to the states and localities and the individuals. So, yes, to your question, in an early point in his career, he wasn't fully defined as the modern conservative that he later became. But interestingly enough, he was always a revolutionary. Even the 8 years that he was head of the national government, nobody ever thought of Ronald Reagan as being part of Washington. He may have been here, but he was always challenging the status quo, always challenging authority.
Do you see anyone that reminds you of Reagan?
No. No, but this is a very, very unique man. There's some people who understand him. There's some people who understand his philosophy. There's some people who articulate his philosophy, who quote unquote get Ronald Reagan. But as far as presidents like Reagan don't grow on trees, and that's why we've had so few and far between great presidents, from Jefferson to Lincoln to Franklin Roosevelt and then to Reagan.
Just a quick final point. One of the things you brought up in your op-ed piece recently is whether it was social issues like gay marriage or bigger, broader, national issues like immigration. You say there's something in there for the Republican Party that is not necessarily issue-based, but a return to localism. And if you could,
yes,
let's end on that, because I think it's an interesting point that maybe we should discuss in the next several weeks and months.
Absolutely, Jenna. You're opening up a Pandora's box. Conservatism, when it was beginning to be coalesced in the 50s, there was a philosophy called fusionism, which was that business interests felt they were threatened by big government, and so did social family values were threatened by big government. So they found commonality in a small government philosophy, and that's what brought them together, and that's what formed the basis of conservatism for 40 years. Beginning in 2001 and 2002, that Pandora's box was open with the nationalization of social issues, and that is a very, very slippery slope to get into, because if you start nationalizing marriage, where do you draw the line? Where do you stop nationalizing social policy?
Interesting. A lot of people say, oh, it just needs better PR. You're a PR guy. It's not just PR.
No, it's not about. It's about substance and philosophy and commitment to principles.
And you covered them well, Craig. We look forward to having you back and to continue to have the conversation. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.